The moment you realize you're not the priority, your chest tightens. Not because you're weak, but because something inside you knows the truth before your mind wants to accept it. You feel it when messages get delayed without explanation, when plans are maybe, when affection shows up only when it's convenient. And the most dangerous part? You start negotiating with your own self-respect just to keep access to someone who hasn't chosen you fully. I'm telling you this as a woman who has watched men unravel quietly, not from heartbreak but from confusion, from hoping effort will earn clarity, from believing consistency on your part will create commitment on hers. That belief is costing you more than you think. When a woman treats you like an option, it doesn't always mean she's cruel. Often it means she's undecided, distracted, or unsure of what she wants. But here's the truth you were never taught. Uncertainty on her side doesn't require sacrifice on yours. The first way to handle this isn't confrontation, it's observation. Silence can be information. Patterns tell the truth louder than words. If her interest rises only when she senses you pulling away, that's not connection, that's reassurance seeking. If she keeps you close but never moves you forward, that's not patience, that's stalling. Men get trapped because they mistake potential for progress. You're not dating her future self, you're dealing with her present behavior. Here's where most men fail. They respond by giving more time, more availability, more emotional labor. They think presence will create value, but value isn't created by proximity, it's created by boundaries. When you overextend, you teach her that access to you is unlimited, even without effort. And when something is unlimited, it is unconsciously devalued. This isn't manipulation, it's human psychology. Handling this starts with regulating your reactions. When you feel ignored, don't chase. When plans fall through, don't audition. When mixed signals appear, don't interrogate. Calm detachment isn't punishment, it's clarity. You continue living your life at full volume. You don't withdraw to provoke. You step back to protect your center. That difference matters. Understand this. A man who respects himself doesn't ask to be chosen. He positions himself so that choosing him is obvious or losing him is real. That doesn't require arrogance. It requires alignment. Your time, attention, and emotional energy are not bargaining chips. They are investments, and investments are made where there is return, not hope. Some women test without realizing it. They watch to see if you'll abandon your standards to keep them interested, not because they want power, but because they're measuring stability. When you stay grounded, kind, direct, and unavailable for games, you send a message without saying a word. I'm not here to be an option, I'm here to be intentional. And if she drifts, let her. The right woman doesn't need confusion to decide. She feels safety in clarity. Your job isn't to convince, it's to choose yourself first, so the right person can recognize your value without you explaining it. One of the hardest truths for men to accept is this. When someone keeps you as an option, they are benefiting from your presence without committing to your value. And the danger isn't just emotional, it's psychological. You begin shrinking your standards so you don't lose access. You tolerate uncertainty because certainty feels like it might push her away. That silent trade is where power quietly shifts out of your hands. The second way to handle a woman who treats you like an option is to stop rewarding inconsistent behavior. Most men don't realize they're doing this. Every time she disappears and you welcome her back without acknowledgement, you reinforce the pattern. Every time she cancels and you instantly reschedule, you teach her your time is flexible, disposable, and endlessly available. Humans don't change behavior that still works. They change behavior that loses rewards. This doesn't mean becoming cold or hostile. It means becoming precise. Consistency on your side should be matched, not unconditional. If she's warm one day and distant the next, you don't interrogate it. You mirror the level of investment. When energy drops, you don't panic. You redirect. Calm confidence isn't loud. It's steady. And steady men are the hardest to treat casually. Here's something most dating advice avoids telling you. Attraction is not built by over-explaining your feelings. It's built by emotional safety paired with self-respect. When you rush to clarify where you stand every time things feel uncertain, you shift from grounded to anxious, and anxiety signals dependency. A woman may still enjoy your attention, but she stops seeing you as a man who leads his own life. Handling this properly means you let space do its job. Space reveals intent. When you stop initiating constantly, her response tells you everything. If she leans in, she values connection. If she drifts away, she valued convenience. Both outcomes are information, not rejection. The mistake is trying to control the result instead of reading the signal. A man who understands this doesn't disappear dramatically. He simply becomes less available to situations that don't meet his standard. He doesn't announce it. He lives it. He fills his time with work, purpose, health, friendships, and progress. Not as a tactic, but because that's what grounded men do. And when your life is full, you don't cling to people who show up half empty. There's also a deeper layer here. Some women keep options because they are unsure of themselves, not because you are lacking. But that uncertainty is not yours to fix. You are not a rehabilitation center for emotional indecision. When you stay hoping she'll suddenly become clear, you delay meeting someone who already is. Strength here is quiet. It's choosing not to overperform for basic respect. It's understanding that interest that has to be chased is interest that fades quickly. When you step back and maintain your standards, one of two things happens. She rises to meet you, or she removes herself. Both outcomes save you time, energy, and dignity. And that's the real win. Not control, not validation, but self-respect that doesn't require permission. Being treated like an option doesn't just hurt your feelings, it slowly distorts how you see yourself. You begin asking the wrong questions. What did I do wrong? How can I be more interesting? How do I make her choose me? And without realizing it, you turn attraction into a performance. That's where men lose their edge, because desire isn't earned by trying harder. It's triggered by presence, direction, and emotional steadiness. The third way to handle this situation is to stop explaining your worth and start embodying it. A man who feels the need to constantly clarify his intentions is often doing so because he's afraid of losing connection. But clarity doesn't come from words. It comes from behavior. When your actions show you have standards, your silence becomes more powerful than any speech. Here's a truth many men resist. If a woman truly values you, she will not risk losing you through prolonged ambiguity. She may move slowly, but she won't leave you confused. Confusion is not romance. It's a signal of misalignment. And when you tolerate misalignment for too long, you teach yourself that your needs are optional too. Handling this correctly requires emotional discipline. When she sends mixed signals, you don't overanalyze every message. You don't reread conversations looking for hidden meaning. You zoom out. You look at the pattern, not the moment. Is effort mutual? Is interest consistent? Is respect present? If the answer keeps coming back unclear, that is your answer. A grounded man doesn't argue with reality. He adjusts to it. That adjustment might mean pulling back your emotional availability, not as punishment, but as protection. You don't share deeply with someone who hasn't earned access to that part of you. Vulnerability without security creates attachment, not intimacy. And attachment to uncertainty is what keeps men stuck. There's something else happening beneath the surface. Some women test men unconsciously by creating uncertainty, watching to see if he becomes reactive. Anger, jealousy, pleading. These responses signal emotional instability. Calm acceptance signals strength. When you remain centered, you pass a test most men fail without knowing it existed. This doesn't mean you shut down. It means you stay warm but not overinvested, kind but not chasing, present but not available on demand. That balance is rare, and rarity creates value. When you don't rush to secure her attention, she feels the weight of possibly losing yours. But here's the key. You must be genuinely okay with either outcome. If your detachment is a strategy instead of a truth, it leaks. Real power comes from knowing you'll be fine whether she chooses you or not. That inner certainty is felt. It changes how you speak, how you listen, how you walk away. Men who master this don't beg for priority, they become selective, and selection is the opposite of being an option. The moment you finally decide to stop tolerating being an option, fear shows up. Not fear of losing her, but fear of being alone. That fear is the leash that keeps most men emotionally stuck. Women sense it, even when you never say a word. And when a woman feels you're more afraid of losing her than she is of losing you, the dynamic tilts immediately. The fourth way to handle this is to rebuild leverage without manipulation. Leverage is not control, it's independence. It's having a life that doesn't pause when someone becomes inconsistent. The men who are hardest to keep as options are the men whose absence actually creates a gap, not relief. This starts with something simple but uncomfortable. You stop being instantly available, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of a full life. You don't rush replies. You don't cancel your plans for last-minute invitations. You don't over-prioritize someone who hasn't prioritized you. When you do this calmly, without resentment, the dynamic shifts. She begins to feel uncertainty instead of you. Here's a truth most men miss. Women don't respect men who abandon themselves for connection. They may enjoy the attention, but respect quietly fades. Respect grows when a man honors his own time, energy, and direction. That respect is what creates long-term attraction, not effort alone. You also stop seeking reassurance. No more subtle fishing for validation. No more indirect questions meant to test her interest. A man who knows his worth doesn't need constant confirmation. He observes and decides. That decisiveness is grounding. It communicates emotional maturity without confrontation. Another critical move here is accepting outcomes instead of resisting them. If she pulls away when you stop overgiving, that tells you the connection was fueled by convenience, not desire. And that information, while painful, is freeing. Because now you're no longer confused. Clarity hurts once. Confusion drains you slowly. There's strength in letting people meet you where you are, or walk away. You don't chase clarity from someone who avoids it. You don't compete with her options. Competing positions you as one of many. Walking away positions you as someone who values alignment over attention. And something unexpected happens when you do this. Even if she doesn't step up, you regain something more important: self-trust. You start believing your own boundaries. You stop second-guessing your instincts. That confidence changes how others treat you, not just romantically, but in every area of life. A man who won't stay where he's undervalued sends a clear message to the world: I don't need to be chosen to choose myself. That mindset is magnetic because it's rare, and rarity commands respect without asking for it. Handling being an option isn't about winning her over. It's about refusing to lose yourself. There comes a point where staying silent isn't strength anymore. It's avoidance. Many men swing between two extremes, saying nothing and hoping things improve, or finally exploding with everything they've been holding in. Neither creates respect, neither creates attraction, and neither gives you peace. Handling a woman who treats you like an option also requires knowing when and how to speak, with calm authority, not emotion. The fifth way to handle this is through clear, grounded communication without attachment to outcome. That last part matters more than the words themselves. When a man speaks from fear, it sounds like pressure. When he speaks from self-respect, it sounds like truth. The difference is felt instantly. This isn't about demanding commitment. It's about stating standards. There's a quiet power in saying, without accusation, that you value consistency, effort, and mutual interest. You don't justify it. You don't debate it. You simply express what works for you and what doesn't. And then you watch what she does next, not what she says. Behavior always answers more honestly than words. Most men sabotage this moment by over-explaining. They list feelings, they recount events, They try to be understood, but leadership energy is simple. It's direct. It sounds like certainty, not persuasion. When you communicate from that place, you're not trying to keep her. You're giving her the opportunity to align or exit. Here's something important. A woman who values you may not even realize she's treating you like an option until you calmly point out the dynamic. Some people operate on autopilot, responding to what's available. When availability decreases and clarity increases, they reassess. But that reassessment only happens if you don't beg for a specific result. If she responds defensively, dismissively, or with more confusion, that's information, not failure. You don't argue, you don't convince, you simply take note. A man who respects himself doesn't stay in conversations where his needs are minimized, and if she responds with effort, real effort, you don't punish her for the past. You don't hold it over her. You stay present and see if consistency follows. Trust isn't rebuilt through words. It's rebuilt through repetition. The deeper lesson here is this. Speaking your truth is not about controlling her behavior. It's about honoring your own. When you finally hear yourself say what you need out loud, something shifts internally. You stop betraying yourself to avoid discomfort, and that self-alignment is attractive regardless of the outcome. Even if she walks away, you leave with dignity intact. You didn't shrink, you didn't chase, you didn't pretend you were okay with less. You showed up as a man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to say it. Men who master this don't fear losing people who can't meet them. They fear losing themselves by staying silent too long. If she responds defensively, dismissively, or with more confusion, that's information, not failure. You don't argue, you don't convince. You simply take note. A man who respects himself doesn't stay in conversations where his needs are minimized. And if she responds with effort, real effort, you don't punish her for the past. You don't hold it over her. You stay present and see if consistency follows. Trust isn't rebuilt through words. It's rebuilt through repetition. The deeper lesson here is this. Speaking your truth is not about controlling her behavior. It's about honoring your own. When you finally hear yourself say what you need out loud, something shifts internally. You stop betraying yourself to avoid discomfort, and that self-alignment is attractive regardless of the outcome. The final truth most men never hear is this. Being treated like an option is not the real problem. Staying when you recognize it is. The moment you see the pattern clearly, responsibility shifts. Not onto her, but onto you. And that's not blame. That's power. Because once you accept that, you're no longer waiting to be chosen. You're choosing. The sixth way to handle women who treat you like an option is to become a man who no longer fits into that category at all. Not because you harden your heart, but because you refine your standards. You stop asking, how do I make her see my value? And start asking, does this dynamic align with the man I'm becoming? This is where real transformation happens. You stop dating from loneliness and start dating from fullness. You stop seeking validation and start seeking compatibility. You don't tolerate ambiguity where clarity is required. And you don't explain that decision, you live it. Here's the uncomfortable part. Some women will only value you when you're gone, not because you weren't enough, but because your presence made it easy not to choose. When you walk away calmly, without bitterness, it forces reflection. Sometimes that reflection brings them back with respect, sometimes it doesn't. But either way, you win something far more important, self-respect that compounds over time. A man who leaves situations that don't honor him doesn't become colder. He becomes clearer. He stops romanticizing struggle. He stops believing love must be earned through endurance. He understands that mutual desire feels calm, not chaotic, safe, not confusing, chosen, not conditional. This clarity changes how you show up everywhere. Your posture shifts, your voice steadies, your energy slows down, and women feel that, not as pressure, but as grounding. The irony is, the moment you stop accepting being an option is often the moment you become unforgettable, because you're no longer negotiating your worth. And here's something crucial. Even if the woman in front of you never steps up, the next one will benefit from the standards you built here. You don't lose time when you learn. You lose time when you repeat the same lesson with different faces. Handling this isn't about revenge, dominance, or proving anything. It's about alignment, about becoming the kind of man who doesn't have to demand respect because his boundaries quietly require it. Now I want to ask you something personal. Be honest with yourself, not with me. In your last or current situation, did you feel chosen or tolerated? Write your answer in the comments. Saying it out loud is the first step to changing it. If this spoke to something you've been carrying quietly, like the video, subscribe for more truths most men were never taught, and share this with a friend who needs to hear it before he loses himself trying to be someone's option instead of his own priority. Even if she walks away, you leave with dignity intact. You didn't shrink. You didn't chase. You didn't pretend you were okay with less. You showed up as a man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to say it.